In this video, I'm gonna talk about another big mistake that I made as a first-year school counselor. I'm gonna talk about the 4 big mistakes that I made, but I'm also gonna share 3 great things that came out of this experience. This is part 2 of the series. My first year as a counselor was rough. Rough. Hi, Carter. So the year was 2014 and I just started as a brand new school counselor. I had all these bright ideas. I wanted to do so much. I was creative, I was ambitious, and I was ready to go. And I thought I knew it all. Before we begin, comment below what was your biggest mistake as a school counselor. Your comments will help other school counselors see so they can avoid these mistakes. So please feel free to comment below. So my first year was actually pretty good as far as the experience go. I was a school counselor in a K-8 school, so there was already an elementary school counselor. She handled the K through 5. I was the 6th through 8th grade counselor. I only had about 150 students and it was actually heaven, but I wanted to do small groups my first school year, and I really honestly didn't even really know what to do. I was coming right out of grad school, so the information that I used from there, and I was leaning heavily on that without the experience part of it. Mistake number 1. So actually, let me set it up first before I talk about the mistakes. It was around testing season, so anxiety is pretty high from everybody in the building. That's admin, teachers, even students getting ready for the state test. I wanted to do whatever I could to help prepare those students for that test. And so I was looking at the data from their benchmark assessments that they took, and I noticed that we had a lot of students who were struggling in math and language arts. And so I wanted to form small groups around those to kind of help those students get ready for the test. I pulled some of the data from the things that they were struggling with, so I looked at the test results and I saw some of the questions that they missed. For example, in ELA, there was a lot of grammar mistakes, capitalization, reading, comprehension, things like that that they needed help with. So that was one thing that I did correctly. But the mistake that I made was, well, there were several, but one of the mistakes I made was I've never taught reading, language arts, or math, so I don't know what I was thinking being able to teach students those skills in small groups. Again, I meant well and I know what I wanted to do in order to help my students, but it wasn't the best idea. So I pulled students to create groups. I worked with them for 6 weeks. I had about 8 students in each of those groups. And I had math groups and I had ELA groups. So I did them on different days and different times. But one of the mistakes that I made was I didn't consult with the reading and language arts teachers or the math teachers on what I was supposed to be teaching. And I didn't get their insight on resources to use for my small groups. So I was kind of pulling things from all over the place. I went to Dollar Tree and got some of those little workbooks that you could use. And I thought that that was a good idea. But again, this was not my subject area of expertise, so I don't know what I was thinking trying to teach math, language arts, or reading. I was a Spanish teacher when I was actually a teacher. Not to knock electives or foreign language teachers, because again, I loved being a Spanish teacher, but again, I don't know what I was thinking trying to teach them reading and language arts, but at least I tried. So now I'm gonna talk about one of the positives. I reviewed the data to form my groups and to hit the targets of what I wanted to teach in those groups. But again, I didn't consult with any teachers on my campus before I started these groups. As a counselor, you have to build relationships and consult with your team. So lesson learned through trial and error, of course. Another mistake that I made was when I was forming my groups, I didn't really prepare what I was going to teach until the last minute. I was pulling those resources the day of or the day before, and I was kind of building the plane as I flew it. And it was kind of a disaster because there were times when I was stressed and I didn't really know what I was gonna do, and I was kind of pulling things together at the last minute. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you're gonna form any small group, make sure that you vet the curriculum, make sure that you internalize it, you practice it, you go over it, and make sure you know what you're teaching. And I didn't know those things at first. I tried, but I didn't know. And the last huge mistake, and you might even say the biggest mistake out of all of these, is I didn't get the students buy-in. I just pulled them into groups and said, hey, I'm gonna be meeting with you on Mondays at 10:30 to 11, and we're gonna go over X, Y, and Z to help you prepare for this test. So when my students came to my office, they weren't excited to be there, they didn't wanna learn, and it felt like another class. So it was frustrating for them, it was frustrating for me, they didn't wanna be there. After a while, I started seeing how frustrating it was. I didn't even want to teach it anymore, but I was like, I've already committed to this. I might as well see it through to the end. But it was very, very rough experience. It was like pulling teeth to get those students to come to my groups. I remember one time, one of my students, his name was Justin, and he was like already 6 feet tall. And so when he came into my office and sat in one of those little rolling chairs, he kind of just slid all the way down. And I can remember vividly the look on his face. But again, these are the funny things that I can look back and reflect on as my experience as a counselor. But I'm telling you, if you want to form groups, make sure that you are prepared, make sure you've reviewed the data and know how you're going to present it. These are all things that you can do to make sure that you set yourself up for success when you are forming groups. I'll never do it again. From now on, if I want to support students in the academic realm of ASCA, I'm going to work with like organization skills, study skills, how to beat test anxiety, more so teaching students executive functioning skills and not specifically how to do subject area things or content area things, because that's not my expertise. But you live and you learn. Be sure to like this video. It's an easy and free way to show me some support, because when you like this video, it pushes it out to other people so YouTube can show it to other counselors or educators who need to see this content. And if you want to support me in another way, buy me a coffee at the link below. Like I mentioned, in this series, I'm going to talk about my first year as a school counselor, and I was looking through my portfolio, which is this right here. It's kind of huge because this is the thing that we use for our evaluation. So it's got all of my documentation from that school year. This huge binder is literally like a gold mine, because I look back through this and I remember literally every program, every intervention, every event that I hosted on my campus. And it was kind of like looking through a yearbook. It helped me reflect on my first school year. So it was really an amazing, positive experience to look through this on my free time. I'll share more from this binder in this series when I reflect on my first year as a school counselor, so stay tuned. As I'm preparing for video 3 in this series, I've got a couple of different options and I need your help. Would you rather hear more about the worst parent-teacher conference that I've been a part of? Or would you rather hear more about organizational mishaps and mistakes that I made? Or do you want to hear about the biggest conflict that I had with a teacher in my entire career? Comment below, which one do you want to hear more about?